All right, welcome to Cultural Entropy. This is my review for Dan Simmons' Hyperion. It's a 1989 novel. Um, as I've gotten back into my writing and reading kick, I remember this book from when I was a kid. The cover, in particular, my book didn't have this cover that you're looking at on the screen, but I do remember the book. I do remember that it did have some acclaim and appeal, a far back. So when I saw that it popped up on a whole bunch of top lists for sci-fi, I was like, okay, I'm gonna finally read this book that I saw when I was a child. And I was really disappointed by it. It's not to say again that I think it's a bad book. I think it's competent. If I had to give a grade to it, it would be like a B or a C. It's okay. The biggest thing I would say, I likely won't be finishing the series, or at least if I do, I'm not really like planning on it or looking forward to it. I could definitely see, finishing it out. It was a rather brisk read for me, so it wasn't too bad. Big critique of this, I would say it's neither soft sci-fi or hard sci-fi. In my opinion, how I would define these things, like soft sci-fi takes just like the coat of paint and puts it over a functioning mechanical novel or story, and the sci-fi elements are like ancillary; they just don't really matter. It's just a regular story with character development and all that good stuff. Hard sci-fi, I think you can throw some of that structural mechanical stuff out of the window, and then it's just more like a textbook and just explains like how the actual science functions. And in this one, it was written in '89. Some of the science behind it may be a little antiquated at this point. I don't knock that against the author or the story. But neither of them I could get into. The author Dan Simmons, he doesn't stop and explain the science behind it at any point. Like it gets later in the novel before he starts going into some of the science. He doesn't stop to explain scenes at sometimes. So like in my mind, they're on an alien world and he's just not going to describe it until he feels like it's time to do it. And at that point, like I've already kind of pictured what it's supposed to be in my own mind based off of very limited uh you know descriptions. And then one of the other things in this one that like I have to bring up with his prose and his structure, because this is more of an anthology than it is a linear narrative. So again, like just getting ready for the prologue for the series regular after reading the Witcher Blood of Elves, this did not sit well with me. It's another novel where it's just like, can I just get a regular functioning story? He couldn't do that. He used the word antediluvian a couple times, and after just reading H.P. Lovecraft again, like this word to me means before the biblical flood, and I don't know exactly how he's using it. If he's just saying that's like it's old or it's antiquated or whatnot, like it just was a really weird word to be using in context of like alien worlds. Like I'm like thinking, is there an alien flood that occurred, or a biblical flood that took place on these planets? Like I don't know. There's a lot of religious metaphor in it. um, I don't know if he was doing it on purpose. It was just, it took me out of the book because it was just odd. The first chapter when he's trying to explain some of the animals and the flora and the fauna, he used the word like a gymnosperm, and I all I knew is that this is a tree. I don't remember which one it was. It's a conifer, and again, like that's not exactly explaining to me what the tree looks like. It's just using a scientific word that I have to stop and go find out what you were talking about. So anyway, I think that's, oh yeah, and then the other thing, overall in the novel, there's this underthread of humans are bad. That trope that's in a lot of science fiction. I'm just tired of that. If you're gonna write a novel, and I have this also written in there, uh, for uh, my critique is everybody puts their ideology into things, but you have to be fair to both sides for the audience. Like be fair to both the arguments and allow the audience to draw their conclusion, and then you get to cheat by having one side take the moral high ground, the other side not. That's how you use a story to push your propaganda. In this case, like using the trope that humans are some way damaged, it's old. Even in '89 it would have been old, especially for science fiction. And if I can guess your political ideology based off of your decision to how you're going to write things out, how you're going to put out arguments, like that's not a good thing for me as a reader, especially now that I'm like really sensitive to all this, like putting your peanut butter in my chocolate stuff that's going out there in the culture war. So again, I that's all the stuff that was taking me out of the book. There's 6 separate sections to the anthology. It's known for being done kind of in a Canterbury Tales type of way. That's what I was reading, doing some research on it. The priest section, the soldier, the poet, the scholar, the detective, and the consul. And the only one that I liked, sort of, was the first section, which is on the priest, and he's like the least relevant character overall to the linear storyline that's going on underneath it. Um, and it's not even actually the priest is not even the actual character in the linear story. He's another character that's already dead when this happens. Full spoilers on this one. Like, I don't care. Anyway, that was the one that like was interesting me enough, kind of like a Star Trek type episode. The soldier kind of maybe had some stuff that like was interesting to it, but it degrades by the end when it collides with the main storyline. The poet was I really didn't like in that one. Bradley Cooper, the actor, was attached or is attached to a potential like live action adaptation of this. I could definitely see he would be playing the poet in this. Like there is a lot of similarities to how Bradley Cooper has portrayed himself in film, and how the poet is written in the story. But again, I didn't like the poet as a character, and overall, like I just didn't find anything interesting about the poet art. The scholar, that one, there was some science fiction to it, although like this is like soft sci-fi. I didn't think it needs to take place. They, the idea and the story of the the scholar is very similar to like it literally says at a certain point like watching a family member disappear from like Alzheimer's. And if you need that one-to-one analogy, it doesn't necessarily have to take place within some science fiction type disease that a character has. There was some stuff to it that was interesting. There's also some stuff to it that was like overdone and unnecessary. I didn't like it. There's a techno noir detective section. I really like crime and noir. You really got to screw it up for me to not like it. I really didn't like it. That one had some interesting sci-fi thought to it, but again, whatever, set in '89, maybe just couldn't land that either. The console, I didn't like. There was again some interesting stuff to think about from a sci-fi perspective, about like losing time by traveling the universe and then coming back to meet somebody. That one had some stuff to go along with it, but by the end, like the politics of that one actually took me out of the end of the story. And then again, like I said, like I'm just overall was not overly enthusiastic about continuing on with the series. If this is how the writer writes, and this is I'm going to get a little bit of his ideology in there, and I don't really know where the story is going because I had to read this just to get prepared to write to read the next one. All stuff that is not leading towards me picking up the next book in the Hyperion series or Dying Earth, whatever it's called. Um, and that's just about how I feel about Dan Simmons' Hyperion.